What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 4. Yeah, episode 4. It's NAMM week here in Nashville. So if any of you guys or gals are going to be at NAMM, I will be at the iconic booth, 1530, I think. I should have looked that up. I think it's booth 1530, but I'll be at the Iconic Guitars booth, hanging all 3 days, and I'll be jumping around to the Ortone booth and just kind of all over the place. So if you see me, come say hi. I want to meet you, or say hi again if we've already met. So yeah, tons of after parties. NAMM is pretty cool. It's not quite as crazy as Anaheim, but it's cool. Anyway. This is going to be a fun one. I'm excited about this one. But first, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by me. So you have to listen to my ads first. Check out my all my socials, Instagram at Colt Capperrune. Check out if you're on Facebook, it's just Colt Capperrune. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you wouldn't mind. You can just search for Colt Capperrune. I'll come up. Hit the subscribe and hit the little bell icon so that way you get notified when I drop sweet podcast episodes. Yeah, check out coltcapperrune.com too, my website. So I'm a mix engineer. I'm a producer. I'm a session guitar player. I do some mastering. If any of y'all are looking for any of that, I'd love to have a conversation with you, see if I'm the right fit, and we can go from there. But I'd love to talk to you about it if you're interested in any of that stuff. So, how to make a living in music. This is kind of a subject that's I'm super passionate about. I really, really enjoy when I'm developing artists, or even when I'm like just having coffee with other producers or engineers or whatever. I really enjoy helping people get to the place where they can make a living at what it is that they want to do in music. So this episode is going to be it's going to cover a lot of that stuff, like how to make a living regardless of what it is that you're doing, whether you're a producer or an artist or just a musician or whatever. Almost all of this stuff is going to apply to everyone. Excuse me. So, how to make a living at music. I think the first thing, and some of this comes from things that I see people miss or things that I see people get wrong. When I see people throw in the towel and they give up trying to make a living at music, it's usually one or multiple of these things. And I make a living at music as a producer and as a session guitarist and as a mix engineer and as a mastering engineer. And I used to make a living at music because of or due to playing, like actually being the artist and the musician. So I have experience in both of these, and so some of this is things that allowed me to make a living at it, and some of this is things that I see allow other people make a living at it, and some of this is from the reasons why I see people throw in the towel. So one of the first things that I think is very, very important is understanding that it's a business. So if you want to make a living at music, you're going to have to approach it like you're running your own business. You just everything that goes along with being a good business owner, which we're going to cover a whole bunch of this stuff, but like the product that you're selling and your marketing and like investing in yourself as a business and like making smart spending choices and on, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into running a successful business. And so I would probably suggest even just looking up on YouTube, although it's hit or miss if you're going to get good information or not, but look into actually being a business owner, because that's really the start of this. Is you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. You have to treat it that way, or else it's incredibly difficult to make a living at it, to make a career of it, I should say. It's not difficult to make money at it, but to make it a career, you have to treat it like a business. And so part of treating it like a business is, what is the air quotes product that you are selling? It doesn't really matter if you're a mix engineer and you're mixing for other producers, if you're a utility player for hire to go on the road, if you are an electrician or a plumber or a mechanic, every entrepreneurial thing, if you're trying to make a living at what it is that you do, every entrepreneurial thing, you have to be able to identify what it is you're, again, air quotes, selling. If someone says, what do you do? You meet someone and they say, what do you do? You should be able to, in one word or one sentence at the very most, tell someone exactly what it is that you do. And that should be the bulk of what it is that you do. So you should know exactly the product or the service that you're selling. There's a lot of people that are just trying to, and I was absolutely one of these people for a long time, where I was just trying everything, whatever I could do to make a living at this. And I get that. Like I said, I was there and I totally understand that. I was playing acoustic gigs. I was in an original group. I was in a cover band. I was running front of house at different clubs for different bands. I had my own PA and was running front of house as a freelance person at clubs and events. I was doing the studio thing. I was producing, I was mixing, I was mastering, I was playing guitar on records. I was literally just doing everything. And the reason why I was doing everything is because I was just trying to survive. I was trying to figure out how to survive while making 100% of my money from something musical. And so if you're in that position, I really hope this helps, because I was once there, and it was only really when I started narrowing that focus to part of doing all that allowed me to figure out what it was that I was good at. But narrowing that focus really started allowing me to hone in and be like, not just okay at certain things, but like being a master of my craft at certain things. And that's what you want to be. You want to be a master at what it is that you're trying to do. So identifying your product, what it is that you're trying to do, is super important. Now, please don't come at me with your pitchforks and string me up and try to burn me at the stake over this next one, because this is a little bit of a touchy topic. I think it's important to try to find the balance between creating art and creating a product that you're selling. So for instance, you might be a songwriter, a singer-songwriter who's also pursuing a career as an artist. There's a fine line. There's some sort of balance between figuring out if you're just creating art and you're doing whatever it is that you want to do. And then the opposite end of that spectrum is creating a product that is deliberately created for consumer consumption. I guess that's how you would say that. A lot of people get really annoyed with this whole music industry machine, where this music is being written not necessarily from the heart, but just as a way to create revenue. And I understand why that annoys people. I don't think there's any right or wrong thing in terms of whether you're creating art that is, you're just creating for yourself. It makes you happy. It's coming from your heart. And if people like it, then they like it. And if people don't, then screw off. I understand that attitude. I also completely understand the people that are creating a legit product for consumption. What I think is important, what I want you to take away from this, I think it's important to find the right balance for you. And I don't think, if you're trying to make a living at this, you have to be in some way mindful of that you have to make money from it. And so somewhere, whether it's 1% of your attention span or 99% of your attention span, you have to have some amount of consciousness towards, is this a product that people would like? And every person is different, and it even is down to the genre. That this approach is different. Now, it's the same for me as a producer and as a mix engineer and as a guitarist. I lean, if we've got pure art and pure commercial product, I lie somewhere in the center or just on the commercial side of center, in terms of what I enjoy doing and how I like to do things. But that is something that I think is you should be conscious of. I don't think there's anything wrong whatsoever of you write a song or you mix a song or you produce a song or whatever it is that you're doing. And in the back of your mind, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making little tweaks towards it being more marketable. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with things being marketable whatsoever. And so however far you want to push that is entirely up to you. And I'm not trying to suggest you should go one way or another. I will, however, say that if you want to make a living at this, you should be a little bit concerned with how marketable it is and how many people would enjoy it. And then I counterbalance that. This is one of those topics where there's no real right or wrong answer. I'll counterbalance that with saying something that I've said a billion times on Facebook and on Instagram, is that you should do what you love and allow money to become the consequence of doing what you love. So again, it's this balancing act between like, oh, if I write a song about this, or if I arrange this as a producer, even if I arrange this song and tweak it a little bit so that way it will be better suited for radio. It will hold people's attention a little bit better. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Those are usually the thoughts that go through my head. But at the same time, I think digging into whatever your real passion is and doing that because it's your real passion, and then allowing the money to be the consequence of those things, I think that's also important. So again, like everything else, it's a balancing act. And that balance is entirely up to you. So this next thing that I'm going to discuss is a little bit, it's really easy for this to get sleazy. I just made up a rhyme. It's really easy for this to get sleazy because you have to sell yourself. No one else is gonna sell you for you unless you just have a deep pocketbook and you're just ready to write a check with many zeros for someone else to promote you. You have to get into the mindset of selling yourself because no one else will. Now, what I mean by selling yourself is getting what it is that you do in front of other people, specifically in front of the people that are the kind of people that will create revenue for you. For instance, I'm a producer. I'm a mix engineer. The people who pay me are record labels, occasionally managers, and artists or bands. Those are the people that pay me. So my goal, my focus is to get what it is that I'm doing in front of those people. You as an artist, your goal should be to get fans. Basically, your fans are what's going to build your career. So fans of your music. And so your focus to sell yourself would be to place yourself in front of as many people that fans as possible. And so there's a whole bunch of strategies on how to do that. And when I'm developing someone, we're working on that a lot. But you have to get in the habit of selling yourself. You have to show people what it is that you're doing. What you don't want to do, and I think I said this in the last video, what you don't want to do is be like, do you like country music? Well, check out country music's latest star, blah, blah. You know, you don't ever want to be that sleazy used car salesman. You just want to show people what it is that you do and document what you're doing and get it in front of people. And so selling yourself is like That's a pretty substantial part of this whole thing. If you can't get yourself in front of people that will pay you for your service, or buy tickets to your show, or stream your music, or buy your merch, or fill in the blank, then it's really, really difficult. I'll go ahead and say impossible to make a living at this. You have to be willing to put yourself in front of people. So the next thing that is super important, I think, is I see a lot of people get discouraged because this whole making a career out of music thing is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Very, very few people release a song and it just blows up and launches their entire career. Very few producers work on a song, one single song that just blows up and makes my career. Very, very few anyone. No entrepreneurial situation. It's very rare for it to be a single event, or even 2 or 3 events that make your career. Usually what it looks like is a long, slow build. And I talked in my last episode about being a session player, how to be a session player, where you will work at a level regardless of what it is that you're doing, and then hopefully you'll have the opportunity at some point to level up, and then you can maintain that level, and then hopefully at some point you'll have the opportunity to level up. Go back and watch my last episode, I think episode 3, about how to be a session player, and I discuss that kind of in depth about how to level up and how to take advantage of the slow build. And most people in music, regardless of what it is that you do, most people in music, that's how their career gets built. And so, like, understand that this is a marathon, this is not a sprint, and it's okay for it to take a long time. You don't want to waste time. You want to be efficient with your effort and efficient with your time. And when, again, I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, and this is not a sales pitch, but when I'm developing someone, we are all about figuring out where they are and where they want to be, and whatever the shortest path from A to B is. How efficiently can we get you from one spot to the next? So I think it's important to do that. It's important to be efficient with your time and with your resources, and make moves that make the biggest impact in whatever it is that your career is. However, understand that this is a long, slow game. I've been doing this producer thing for 18 years. I produced my first record 18 years ago. And if I'm being completely honest, it's only been in the past 5 or 6 years that things have really started to move, and it's only been in the past 2 or 3 years, probably 2 or 3 years, that my career has started to take on an exponential curve where it's growing very rapidly at this point. And which I'm going to talk about this later, there have been so many times that I almost threw in the towel, like really, really was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so part of me having those thoughts is I didn't understand that of the slow build thing. I didn't understand that it takes years to get to build a career as an entrepreneur, regardless of what your entrepreneurial field is. Let's go ahead and talk about throwing in the towel. So, man, just the amount of things that have happened. Probably the biggest thing that has happened that really, really made me almost throw in the towel is I had a studio. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I had a big studio right downtown on the riverfront, like in a huge building right downtown. It's like 2,600 square foot, the studio was. And that was my studio for years. I borrowed a lot of money to build that place. I built it from the ground up. And I was there for a lot of years, and taking a chance, that's probably something else we should discuss here a little bit, but you'll get it from this story. Taking that chance on borrowing a bunch of money to build this studio, that was one of the most important things in terms of me building my career, was taking a chance, jumping, just going for it. And it is one of the reasons, having a big space that was my own space, that there wasn't any time restrictions. If I wanted to take 4 hours setting up and tuning a drum kit, I could do that, and I wasn't paying someone else. I wasn't hiring an engineer, or I wasn't renting a studio. It was my choice to do that. And so the learning opportunities that afforded me was immeasurable. Anyway, had a big studio. This is a pretty familiar story, especially to those of you that are in Nashville, because it's happening around town all the time. So back in Peoria, I get the notice that the building owners are going to redevelop the entire building into condos. Now, this is a creative space where there was, photographers and sculptors and painters and some music people and my studio, and it was a huge creative building. There were dozens and dozens of tenants in this enormous building. And we all got the boot. We all got kicked out so that way they could redevelop into condos. There's a whole bunch more backstory that goes into it about, anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. But basically, I still owed many thousands of dollars on my loan for building the studio at the time that I got the boot. And, things were going okay. I had already had my first number one, but it was kind of a break-even situation, if I'm being honest. Like, financially, it was a break-even situation. The overhead that it took to run a big studio like that and pay back big construction loans, it was kind of a break-even situation. And I was killing myself, working 16 hours a day, almost 7 days a week, just trying to break even. And so this happened, and I still owed a ton of money on my loans. And I was like, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. I don't know that this music thing is for me. And I thought really, really hard about it, about what to do moving forward. Should I go back to school? Should I finish up my degree? Should I just throw in the towel and just do something else? Should I go back to trying to be an artist? What should I do? And it took a long few weeks for me to really weigh out all the options. And what I came up with is, I will not be happy doing anything other than this music thing in an entrepreneurial sense. That is what I need for myself to be a happy, whole individual. And so what I had to make a difficult choice, where it was, do I rebuild in Peoria, Illinois, or do I move somewhere that the ceiling, so to speak, of my career is removed? And even though I'm starting over kind of in a new market anyway, should I take that chance? And I did take that chance, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So the point of that whole story is that you are probably going to come up against immeasurable difficulties throughout this. That was one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life, where I didn't even hire it out. I personally built that studio. I did the layout, the design, I framed it, I ran the electrical, I ran all the cabling, I did all the drywall, everything. I did everything. And so to go through, it took 6 months for me from the time I got the keys to the time it was operational, and another handful of months before it was, kind of finished. To go through that and to literally lose all that sweat equity and all that money invested in the construction materials and still owe on the construction of it. It was very easy to just throw in the towel. If I was going to do it, that was the time. And so I just want you to realize that you have to decide how bad you want this, and that success in whatever it is that you do is going to come from never throwing in the towel. As long as you haven't given up yet, you are not defeated. Success only comes to those who haven't given up. You hear stories of inventors, Thomas Edison or whoever, who failed hundreds or sometimes thousands of times before they finally made something that worked. And that is what this thing is. And that is usually fueled by people not being able to walk away from it. You're not capable of doing anything else with your life. So get in that mindset and know that you have to make a choice, because it is not going to be easy. There's nothing easy about this, but you have to make a choice that you're going to do this no matter what. And hopefully you have a significant other or some friends around you that have your back. My wife has been, which she wasn't even my wife at that time. She was when I lost the studio. But for many of my hardships, my wife was 100% there for me and really kind of kept me going. She kept my car from getting repoed, 12 years ago, however long ago it was. I mean, really was there for me. So surrounding yourself with the right people is important as well. That is super freaking depressing. So let's get on to less depressing topics. But you have to know not to throw in the towel. You have to, or if, maybe you do throw in the towel, but like, you have to know that you've given it your all before you're willing to do that. So on to less depressing things, or less serious things, maybe. I don't know. I think it's really important to invest in yourself. All of this stuff that you see in my photos and in my videos, this is the product of me spending every single spare dime I've ever had. I'm 35. I'm almost 36 in a month here. Every single spare dime I've ever had in my entire adult life has been spent on this. This is how I've invested in myself. And in spending all of those tiny spare pennies over all those years is what has allowed me to do what I do for a living. So regardless of what it is that you do, whether you're a producer, invest in your gear, in your space, even my studio that I lost was super important for me to spend that much money to build that studio, so that way I could learn, I could grow in that studio. It's very, very important. When it comes to you being an artist, it's so important for you to invest in yourself, in quality gear, in lessons if need be. Like there's not a singer. There's not a singer out there that shouldn't still be taking vocal lessons. You should be taking vocal lessons forever. Carrie Underwood still takes vocal lessons. So I think it's important to invest in your abilities through lessons and training and research, for sure, research, and in also your gear, the guitar that you play, the microphone that you sing in, whatever, fill in the blank. It's important as an artist to invest in your production and your videos. People, if you really want to take this seriously and you really want to get somewhere with your career in music, you absolutely have to invest in it. And other people within the industry, let me just break this down real quick. You're an artist and you want to get on this big show, opening for whoever, fill in the blank. I'm going to say that a lot in this episode, fill in the blank. How do you get on that show? Well, in a nutshell, you have to be able to bring people to the show, but we're talking about production here and investing in yourself. So you've got your music video and your photos and your music productions. Those are the three things that can help get you that gig. Those three things can make or break your gig. So you have an EPK on your website, this promoter who's in charge of filling up the lineup for the show that you went on. He doesn't know who you are. So that gets into the relational side of things, but he doesn't know who you are. So he's going to click on your EPK and he's going to see a photo that is like, it's okay. And he's going to see a music video that's like, couldn't be on MTV or CMT. And then he's going to hear your production and it's okay. It's okay. And then he's going to look at the next candidate for that opening slot. And they've got ridiculous photos and their music video looks fantastic. And their production is A-list killer production. Who do you think is going to get the show? The person who has all their ducks in a row and has invested in their self. So, and that is just the way that it is. There's not even any debate to be had there. That's the way that it is. And so if you want those opportunities, you have to invest in yourself. And this is no different than investing. Let's say I use this example a lot. Let's say that you wanted to build houses for a living. You'd have to buy a truck and you'd have to buy all the tools, tons and tons and tons of tools. You'd have to get training. You'd have to hire employees. Getting off the ground in music and investing in your business. Remember, understand that this is a business. Investing in your business, getting off the ground in music is honestly probably cheaper than most other businesses that you could start. I use the house building one a lot because that's a pretty average career where you do remodels or whatever, and you have to have all the equipment and the training and the truck and possibly the trailer, probably the trailer if you're building houses. That costs a ton of money to get into that, and it costs a decent chunk of money to get into anything in a serious manner. And so anyway, I want you to be in the mindset of don't ever half-ass stuff. You never want to. I would rather people have one single photo that is jaw-dropping and one single song that is mind-blowing than a whole entire album of very mediocre songs and mediocrely produced material with amateur music videos. That is not going to get you anywhere. Having professional stuff will set you ahead of the people that are doing that. Now, this is not like a competition. I'm not big on you've got to win and you've got to beat this artist, these other artists. No, but the point is if you want opportunity, you have to do these things that can land you the opportunity. Jaw-dropping photos. Again, we're talking about artists, but it's kind of the same for what I do as well. Jaw-dropping photos, absolutely killer production and ridiculous music video. And if you can only do one of those, then do one of those. If you can do 3 of those, then do 3 of those. If you can do 5 of those, then do 5 of those. It's kind of where the slow build mentality comes in, where, you do everything that you are doing at the highest possible level you're capable of doing it at, and then be patient. Like I said, I would rather see an artist do one ridiculous photo, one ridiculous song, one ridiculous music video, and then 6 months do it again. Do another ridiculous photo and a ridiculous music video and a ridiculous song. I would rather see that, and I think that you're being more efficient with your resources and with your time by doing it that way than just throwing a bunch of crap out there. You don't ever want people to look at you and be like, that's okay. You never want that. You won't get fans that way. You won't get opportunities for shows that way. You won't get opportunities for a record deal that way. You'll never get any of those opportunities if people are just like, well, it's okay. You have to crush it. That's how you stand out. So the other thing that is super important about getting to make a career, and this goes for any entrepreneur, is making smart spending choices. So I already said that I've invested every single dollar, literally every single dollar I've ever had in this thing. I have a extremely average car. I don't have a motorcycle. I don't have a boat. I'm building a house finally after 18 years. But there's no toys. I'm not oh, cool, I'm doing kind of okay now, let's go buy a BMW or fill in the blank, whatever. I'm super conscious about being extremely efficient with the money that I have and the money that I spend. And I think that is really important. You have to keep your overhead as low as humanly possible when you're launching your career. Hopefully you can build your career to the point where you can start buying a few things. And like I said, I'm building a house, a new studio right now, and it's just been a lot of years of not spending money on anything. I don't go on vacations, like hardly ever. And when I do, it's like a super cheap weekend to Florida. It's just be very conservative with your finances, because it's hard to make money at music. It really is. Even for what I do as an artist, it's not an easy thing to make consistent money at your art. And so part of being able to make a living at it is keeping your output as low as humanly possible. Which that kind of goes into, that kind of plays into like spending money once on stuff like your productions and your videos. Like spend money one time, because if you drop 4 EPs and a music video for a single for each of those EPs, and all of them are mediocre, you've kind of wasted your money. You really could have taken all of that money and dumped it into 1 or 2 or 3 singles and gotten way further in your career. Again, that's a deep conversation, honestly, but be smart with how you spend your money. And then, you have to be reliable. People have to know that they can count on you. People have to trust you. You have to be honest. When you say something, you're going to do it, or do it to the best of your ability anyway. You don't ever want to be that person that like stops answering phone calls, or shows up 30 minutes late to the gig, or like no call, no shows recording sessions, or could go on and on and on and on. I'm going to go ahead and say this. He might see it, is what it is. Hopefully this will help someone else. I had a session player not all that long ago, who no call, no showed our session. I booked him, was going to pay him to come in and play on a record. He didn't show up, and he didn't call until 30 minutes after the time that he was supposed to be here. And it wasn't because he forgot. It was because he got busy. And guess who's never getting a phone call from me again? I don't care how good he is. I'll never take a chance on that again. I set aside a block of time. I hire someone. And this goes to the same if you're hiring a producer or a mix engineer, if you're whatever the case may be. If you're an artist and a promoter is hiring you, or you're booked at the club to go play the show, whatever the case may be. This is just a principle. So this gentleman no call, no shows me. And then when he did finally call, it was like a bullshit ass excuse about he just got caught up and was busy. Never going to hire him again. And I would bet all of the gear in this room that guy will not end up making a career out of what it is that he does. He may be making his living from it right now, but you can't do that because people will not continue to hire you. So you have to be reliable. Sorry, that was a little bit of an aggressive rant, but that stuff is so important. And hopefully my level of intensity like portrayed how important that is, because you just can't do that. You have to be reliable, and you have to be honest. And then I've talked about this in every single video so far. You have to be a good hang. Like, people have to want to be around you. If people don't enjoy being around you, they'll hire someone else, as a session player or as a producer or as an artist. If you're a real asshole to work with, people just won't hire you. And so be a good hang, and like leave your ego at the door, and be reliable and honest. Like those are all, I mean, it's a good motto for life, honestly. It really is just how you should live your life. But really also, if you want to make a career out of this, it's super important to conduct yourself that way. I think it's also really important to show up every day and do your very best. It's very easy, and I fell into this before when I was playing nonstop on stage. In past years, I have fallen into this with studio projects. It's very important to do your best, your very, very best every single time that you do what it is that you do. I can remember playing shows, playing shows for 2,000 people, and then the next night playing to 15 people, 20 people. I remember those nights, and I remember that happening. And I remember how difficult it was, especially in the earlier years, to show up and do the same thing, to put on the same show. And once I got through that mentally, we used to get, the band that I was in, we used to get compliments all the time because we would throw down in front of those 20 people just as hard as we threw down in front of 2,000 people. And that helped our following. That people were impressed by that. Same thing as a producer, as a mix engineer. In past years, I've worked on projects that were either not that great, or they didn't hold my interest, or the person was difficult to work with, or whatever, the reasons could be endless. But I think it is very important to show up at 110% every single time you do what it is that you do. That is super important. You never want to half-ass something just because it's a small show or a small artist or whatever. And then the last thing is you should make progress every single day. Every day or every night. It's not always in the morning. Every morning or every night, I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do today to further my career? And this is a general mindset that I think is important to get into. I'm already making a living at this. This is how I pay my bills. I don't do anything else. I just do this. And I'm still every single day, how am I going to further my career? How am I going to get further than I am now? How am I going to work on bigger, more successful things than I'm currently doing? How am I going to help my artists become bigger and more successful than they are now? All of these things I think about every day, and I try to do something every single day that will either place me in front of more people, or that will give me a bigger opportunity than I have previously had, or that I can become better at my craft. There's a whole bunch of things, down to like, how can I be better on social media? So anyway, I think it's important to just wake up every single day with that mindset. How do you do whatever it is that you're doing the very best that you can do it, and how you can push yourself every single day, even once you are making a living, but especially before you're making a living. How do you make progress towards making a living, towards your career every single day? And if you're not doing something, even some sort of planning, if you're not doing something every single day, then you probably don't want it bad enough. And I'm not trying to get down on people, but I'm trying to say that that's what it takes if you want to make a career out of this music thing. If you don't want to wait tables or be a bouncer or drive for Lyft or Uber or whatever other stuff that so many of us have done, in order to make ends meet while we were building our career. If you don't want to do those things anymore and you just want to do music, you have to make progress every single day. So that is all I had written down. That's all I had written down. I probably could rant for another 20 minutes on this, but this is already like 45-minute long video. So anyway, if you like this, if you got something out of it, I would be honored if you shared it, if you sent it to a few people or tagged a few people in the comments. If I didn't cover something that you think was important, drop it in the comment and let me know. And give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, love it if you subscribe. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next week. Later.